Mr. White?
Yes, who's this?
The name is Bond. James Bond. Mr. White, we need to talk.
Care to reconsider, Mr. Bond?
Kill him! He's in the garden! Go! Brother! He can't be far! Move!
Now I don't know if most of you will remember this title, especially as there were two different versions. Quantum of Solace for the PS2. My goodness, coming back to this game after almost 20 years, it made me realise that it was pretty janky. You know, a bit of a slugfest. As I stated, there were two different versions made for this game. The PS3, 360 and PC version actually ran on a COD 4 engine, whereas the PS2 had an older engine from past Bond titles. As a kid, I think I had a slightly more positive outlook as I wasn't really allowed to touch shooters then, but coming back to it now, most of what I see is flaws. But I guess what doesn't help is my aim on a controller I haven't touched in years is horrendous. Forgive me, the gameplay you're about to see is not great, so many missed shots, but anyway. Because these versions ran on different engines, a lot more was offered for the PS3, 360 and PC version. Aside from a clear graphical improvement, players had the ability to run their missions in first and third person, kinda switch out when they want for added flexibility. The levels retain more accuracy when adapting segments from the movie, and overall there are a few additional filler missions, giving a total of 15 levels I believe, whereas the PS2 version only had 11, and the camera was locked to third person only. Online was available for the PC, 360 and PS3. I think it was just standard modes, you know, TDM, free-for-all, territory control, and golden gun, where players would fight for this powerful one-hit kill weapon that grants additional points per kill. So even though this version has its issues, there was a lot more to work with. The PS2 counterpart, however, feels very bare bones, scaled down to the bare minimum. Outside of the 11 missions, there's nothing else to do. No collectibles, no online, no side missions, no additional levels outside of the story to give it some longevity. The replay value was tied to the story missions and that was it. As I said, as a kid I probably enjoyed it more since this was my first shooter, as I was coming off the backboard of Need for Speed and Lego games really. But this is it really, 11 levels with a couple filler ones that aren't necessarily tied to the movies. I believe that was the Sinkhole and Science Center mission. For both generations they did manage to add the Casino Royale, but for the PS3, 360 and PC version they adapted a few more segments, like when Bond was poisoned. Looking at the speed runs, the PS2 version was only done in just about an hour, so it's not a long game in the slightest. But how was the gameplay really? So they adapted parts of Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace, but more so in a sped up action remix of them. Less of the storytelling, more of the jump in and start shooting. Context was given at the start of a level and that was it. Some levels were dedicated to just showing a chase sequence, like a popular one, the construction site from Casino Royale. Literally that whole level was just chasing a guy, no shooting, no nothing, but I'll talk about that later. The first level at the estate teaches you the basics, movement, how to subdue enemies, shooting, and hacking. Again, there's no collectibles or side stuff, so you really just focus on the mission. Occasionally at checkpoints you'll get updated notes on what you have to do, in which most of it is just reach this location, get access to this safe, track or chase this person, etc. There isn't really a heavy roster of guns, but you do get your standard pistol with a silenced option, assault rifles, SMGs, shotguns, and snipers, most of which can be picked up from enemies you kill. Bond doesn't start with an arsenal unfortunately, just your pistol with a silencer. No explosives either, enemies can use grenades and whatnot, but you do have the evasive roll to counter this. The control scheme for this was interesting. It's not like modern games today where you've got L2 to aim, R2 to shoot, square to reload, etc. In this one it's actually R1 to shoot, which isn't uncommon. You know, some people swap to this in COD titles when playing Claw. It makes it easier on the hands rather than using the triggers. R3 to aim, and by that I mean focus aim, zoom in with more accuracy, hold L1 to take and stay stay in cover, R2 to reload, L2 to shoulder swap, square to crouch, and circle to evasive roll. So it sounds like it's a bit all over the place, and having played a lot of Battlefield recently, getting used to this controller scheme took a while. To be honest, I'm not even sure if I ever did get used to it. It's such a bizarre layout, you can't change controls either, so it was a bit of a hassle. The guns felt okay-ish, I don't know, they just did their thing really. None of them really stood out, but I did like how the Magnum sounded, packs a bit of a punch.
Hold this location!
I think the reason I can't give much input on this is because there's no hit markers on this version. You kind of just have to get your enemy inside your reticle and hope for the best. So most of the time I was just second guessing whether I'd actually killed an enemy or not. Sort of feels like you're just shooting ghosts. Combining this with the inconsistent and stiff AI animations, I'd be wasting more bullets than necessary. For levels that took place in the dark or at night, there were times where I literally couldn't see anything at all. I thought it was a brightness issue, which I maxed out, and this helped a bit, but I don't know, the game still felt pitch black to me. And of course it happens at times where I need to chase someone, I could not see where I was going.
To the basement.
On their way. Do you see Mitchell?
He's heading underground to the old Roman cisterns.
Can't see anything.
It's likely to be unstable down there. We've got 15,000.
Can't see at all. There were environmental hazards you can interact with, such as shooting down chandeliers to take out small groups of enemies, gas canisters, electric panels, and generators, so that spiced up the gameplay a bit, but I don't know, the overall gameplay felt mechanical. It wasn't as free-flowing, if that makes sense. When traversing the map, you could vault over fences or low-rising walls, climb along beams and up trains to gain elevation advantage, and of course, reach the next objective. But it was more like an animation-locked movement, I think that's the phrase. Doing any of these animations felt like a mini cutscene. You couldn't adjust your camera. It's like a short moment where the game takes over your controls, which is fine, but once the animation is over, it's like you got to pick up speed again. Now when it comes to Daniel Craig's Bond, we all know his parkour can be a little wild, busting through walls and landing on furniture in a clumsy fashion. But I think that's what's missing. I understand the PS2 didn't have the capability to improve these elements, hence why I was stuck with this sandbox level parkour mechanic. It's more of a hindrance than aesthetically pleasing. There were quite a few missions which required you to chase an enemy, and if they got too far away you'd fail. The vaulting and climbing with a short pause just breaks the flow of that, and that's what killed it for me. They did add a slow motion segment during the Sienna chase though, where you'd have to shoot out some tires. It's a nice addition, but again, because there was no hit marker, the amount of times I failed this was insane. Same goes for the final mission at the Eco Hotel. You had to shoot some guy before he gets into a helicopter. It just looked weird as hell and took a few retries because I didn't know where my bullets were going. I can appreciate these sequences being added to bring more life to the gameplay, but I don't think it was executed well. It might have been better off not including it in the PS2 version. The hacking sequence was quite interesting though. Basically just a quick time event where you need to press the corresponding button on the D-pad when it lights up green. Any red lights are incorrect and are an attempt to throw you off. You lose time on the sequence if you press it by accident as well. Started off easy, but once you get to the science center, that hacking sequence was a pain. Could only afford one slip up, otherwise you'd have no time to complete it. But you know, as a kid I think I appreciated it more, felt like a little hacker back then when it got a bit techie. This game loves their quick time events, as some of the major boss battles included them. They weren't as long, quite short actually, but you had a very short window to get the buttons right. It's not like Heavy Rain where you can afford multiple slip-ups. Once you miss one, that's it. The Science Center was a challenge because before the QuickTime event sequence, you had to get them into a down state with continuous damage. Failing the sequence afterwards would require you to do it all again, whilst other enemies are shooting you, so it's just tedious. You can see your health bar, but there's no indication of how much damage you've done to bosses, so you've just got to wing it until they're visually downed. You can tell I've got so much beef with the Science Center. They ramped up things to 100 in that level, my days. The final boss fight surprised me though. In the movie, Bond was fighting Dominic Green in the hallways, stairwells with fire beneath them, so you'd expect maybe a quick time event here since it's more fitting for the setting, but this ended up being just a gunfight, shooting him enough times in an open area until he died. Kinda anticlimactic, but you know, they had the material to do something, so I'm surprised no combat sequence was added here. Overall though, adaptation accuracy was 50-50. I guess they did what they could where they could. The rooftop fight at Siena was alright. I wasn't expecting it to be 100% accurate, but there were at least some familiar elements. Same with the construction site, even though that was short-lived. It kind of felt like they squeezed that in separately as the shantytown covered most of it. And I guess the level would be too long for the PS2 hardware to process if they put it all together as one level. The Casino Royale was my favourite though. I think they did a good job with that, especially with the fight sequence at the end on the stairwell. Out of all the adaptations, that was the most accurate one, even though it wasn't spot on.
Go to the room. Get back to the room. I'll meet you there. Take the stairs.
I would take a handful.
Based on everything I've said, I clearly haven't had many good things to say about this one. Giving them the benefit of the doubt, the PS2 just wasn't powerful enough to pull off what the PS3, 360 and PC could at the time. Unfortunately, I didn't have access to any of those consoles, but I'm still grateful they gave us a Bond game on the PS2. But I think for maximum enjoyment and game mode availability, your best bet was running it on a newer gen console at the time for sure. You had the best of both worlds, campaign, multiplayer and so on. Ragdolls were really funny though, and props to this guy for always coming back no matter how many times I took him down. Oh, he's back. Knock this guy out again. I don't hate this game, because as a kid I think I still enjoyed it. It's not unplayable, it's just so stripped down. Maybe putting 2 films in one game was overkill, which led to unnecessary missions being slotted in. That construction site mission was better off being a whole cutscene or quick time event, in my opinion. It did not need its own level. It wasn't seamless, just more of a stop go. In spite of that though, it is James Bond, can't go wrong with shooting some bad guys, a few cinematic scenes here and there, which is honestly better displayed in the idle intro. I was moving like a granddad in this game, so it was very clunky to me. I don't think both generations of console had a car chase scene either. They just showed a cinematic one at the end of the first level. A good watch, but it sucks we couldn't actually drive. Now that I think about it, Nightfire for the PS2 that released 6 years before this had car chase sequences, so I guess because this was during the early stages of the PS2 era, a different game engine and development team, naturally things like a car chase would be possible, and that Quantum of Solace was really meant for the PS3 360 generation only. But assuming they wanted to deliver something for the soon to be outdated PS2 to maximize sales, they still gave us a game, just one that was lacking substance compared to the new generation at the time. Other games in the same boat like Test Drive and Disney Pixar Cars had versions dropped on both generations, but they still managed to make it the same game, in spite of the performance drop for the PS2, but of course, different engines, different teams, different circumstances. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Quantum of Solace, a game that was more so built for its time, but maybe something that should have been left for the PS3, 360 and PC to run. I touched base with it, but I don't think you'd be missing out on much if it wasn't available for the PS2. That's just me anyway. For any of you guys that played it, what did you think? Did you enjoy it back then? Do you feel the same, or have your opinions changed now after seeing the gameplay once more? If you played on PC, 360, PS3, I'd like to know your thoughts on that version too. I hope you guys enjoyed. It's been Dre, take care and see you next time.